What makes the millennial generation different? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Clinton, and I come from the Cambridge Family Enterprise Group. And I'm here to answer that question for you. How can we prepare the millennial generation for leadership in a family business? And I want to talk to you about this lady. I had the pleasure of speaking at the YPO conference in Mexico City. 500 next-generation leaders, exactly like Vanessa. Vanessa said, "Eric, I thoroughly enjoyed your talk. Can we have a coffee?" No problem. So sat down, had a coffee. Tell us about your business, Vanessa. Significantly large hotel chain in not just Mexico, but right across Latin America. Eric, I've got some questions. Okay, well, I'm going to grab a napkin. I'm going to write down your questions. Okay, let's go. These are the questions Vanessa asked me, a millennial generation future leader of a family firm. How will I gain respect? Second, do people think I got the job just because my family owns a business? Is this a job really for life? 10, 20, 30, 40 years? When can I discuss this big topic of ownership? Dad, ownership, next generation. Will this role offer me purpose? This big question we have and we struggle with. What is purpose? And I'll come to that today. How can I move out of the shadow of my father? How can I continue differently? How can I get the shareholders, my family, to respect me and my talents? How can I work with the senior generation of my father's age? What about entrepreneurship? In the business, outside the business, and what about social entrepreneurship? Are my qualifications, are they enough? How can I change the board of directors? And should I work outside the business? You can see my napkin pretty quickly. It filled up with ideas from Vanessa. I had then the opportunity, but 6 months later, to meet her father. And her father didn't have 12 questions for me. Her father had one question for me. Manuel sat down and said, "Eric, look me in the eye," and he said, "I have one question for you. This is the question. Are we in good hands?" And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to talk to you about Vanessa's story. I'm going to talk to you about her father's story. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the millennial generation. But before I spoke to Vanessa, and many of you here are advisors to family firms, I asked Vanessa, have you ever heard of the family enterprise flower? Never heard it. Okay, so I got another napkin. I said, Vanessa, I'm going to give you this, and I want you to put this on your wall in your office. And I want you to think strategically about every petal on this flower. She did, and I've met Vanessa many, many times, and we have open conversations. What's your plan? Because you're going to try and lead, unify, and unite your family business into the future. We know you have a family company. Great. You talk about that from a very young age. What about your non-core businesses? What are they? What are you doing? How do you integrate them? Financial assets. Is it a family office? Family assets, a little bit different. Property, wine, art. What about philanthropy? Social impact of the business. Family communities. You're a multi-generational family firm. You have a legacy. You have a tradition. How are you managing that tradition? As important in a family firm, it doesn't matter whether in Switzerland, France, Ireland, it doesn't matter where we take a family firm. You ask them, what is their passion? Yes, it is performance. But this, family unity and family life are equally important. What are you doing about that, Vanessa? And lastly, we spoke about family talent. Vanessa, you are the next generation. You are the fifth in line, or fifth generation to this family firm. What are you doing about developing your next generation talent? Every time we meet with Vanessa, we have a topic at one of the different petals. This is a good starting point for next generation thinking about getting involved in the family business. Let me tell you a bit about millennials. This is insights from research done by many sociologists across the world. What do we know about millennials? Let's try and get inside the heads of them. They're going to be your employees. They are your employees. They're going to be your clients. They're going to be your suppliers. And they are going to be the leaders of the future of our industries. So what do we know about them? Well, if you sit here today, largely there's consensus on where you fit. Just look at the birth year you were born. If you're pre-46, silent generation, baby boomer 46 to 60, X 60 to 84, millennials 84 to 2000, and Generation Z 2000 to 2015. What's very unique? We now very soon will have 5 generations working together, like Lombardo spoke about a second ago. Previous 2 generations, 3 generations, 5 generations working together. I want to talk to you about the bulge, the one in the middle, this one here, the millennial generation. Today, as we exist on our planet, 25% of the world's population are the millennial generation, 50% of the workforce. Within 5 years, folks, 5 years, they're going to be 75% of the workforce. So what do we know about them? Nothing really new. We know they're tech-centric, absolutely. 3.7 hours a day, on average, they spend on their phone. They check their emails 96 times, and a whopping 53 minutes on Instagram. Short attention spans. Fascinating study by Microsoft. Study people like you and I. They got you to focus on a particular object. How long do you think you can focus on an object without distraction? 2,000 this study was done on hundreds of thousands of people. 12 seconds. It's done today in millennial generation. 8 seconds. Mindful, a goldfish is 9 seconds. There's so many distractions, folks. Focus, attention, getting attention early. What else do we know? Multitaskers. Whether it's responding to an email while listening to a podcast, whether it's exercising while watching a movie. This is a generation like none before. Multiple tabs open on their computer screen. Multitasking is what they do. They value individuality. They value their particular type of dress. They value the Instagram picture they've taken at a particular part of the world. One of the things as well is veganism. Look at the rise of veganism. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that veganism is associated with the millennial generation and they've created it. Not at all. But the power of social media. Today, 40% of the millennial generation identify as vegan. 20% Generation X and 15% of the baby boomers. To give you some stats, the millennial generation buy 80% more kale, 87% more tofu, 266% more avocado, and a whopping 550% more plant-based milk. This is the big question. I get this all the time. I hear millennial generation, they say, Eric, I want purpose in my job. What does purpose mean in a job, in a career? Let's talk a little bit about it. I want you to think of it 3 things: professional purpose, team purpose, and environmental purpose, community. They want the lunchtime talk from the CEO. They want the regular one-on-ones. They want lots and lots of feedback. They want to be involved in goal setting at a team level. They want to work, and this is something I see as educating next generation leaders. They want to work in a certified B corporation. If you don't know what a certified B corporation is, you got to go and figure it out. They want to work at a VTO company. I hear this all the time. They'll ask, what's their values of the business? Do they have VTO? Volunteering time off. Huge thing for this millennial generation. This is a big one. They value experiences, self-expression, and meaning. Yes, of course they do. But it's not too dissimilar to the generation before, Generation X. They did value experience, expression. But as we enter our 30s, we become more aligned or more pro-materialistic things as we start to lay down roots. And the question will be, will the millennial generation follow suit? They have more confidence than any previous generation. They're not intimidated to put their point across. And they do expect a seat often at the table. They have less respect for hierarchy. I don't mean they're disrespectful, but they feel more like a peer relationship with team members in a work situation and a social capacity. This word, phygital, has come kind of post the pandemic. They want jobs which recognize their talents. They want lots and lots of feedback. They want flexibility, whether it's the physical or their digital experience in their work career. Now, this is interesting, and this is a fantastic piece of research done. You see here on the bottom here, University of Minnesota. I'll share the information with you. They asked the question, what's your attitudes towards authority in the workforce? And they asked it to the three different generations you see on the screen. The baby boomers, Generation X, and this millennial generation. Baby boomers expect some deference or respect for their authority. X are comfortable interacting with superiors. But then if we look at the millennial generation, authority must be earned. They must earn their respect. If you talk about commitment to an organization, loyalty to organization, baby boomers, 65% want lifetime association. 40% want a lifetime association for Generation X, and millennial generation, 20%. They're asked, what are the 5 key things you need to be a successful leader in a business, whether it's a family business or not? If we look at, I have them in red here, the baby boomers, 78% get along with people. 71% for Generation X. It didn't even feature in the top 5 for the millennial generation, get along with people. Multitasking came in at 59%. Now, I want to introduce you to see here, what are some of the factors influencing this millennial generation? One, we obviously know, connectivity, technology. Globalization, they're the most global generation of their kind. Increasing diversity, egalitarianism in society. This one is interesting. They value individuality. They feel let down. Remember, they've entered the workforce in around the year 2000. They've seen high levels of unemployment. They've seen political unrest. They've seen terrorism. And rather than depending on organizations, they've looked internally to themselves. Helicopter parenting. Like no other generation, they've had to explore and exploit resources. The last one is an interesting one as well. If you look at developmental psychologists, or if you're interested in developmental psychology, as we as beings enter our 20s and 30s, typically adulthood, the developmental psychologists are saying now, as this millennial generation enter their 30s, they still haven't hit full adulthood. Yes, they have a job. Yes, they're formally educated, but they haven't primarily started to lay down roots, and it's what they're terming now emerging adulthood. But what about millennials from a family business? What do we know about a family business? They have access to more resources. They're typically better educated than their peers. Are they different? Are they one and the same? And I want to share some insights, specifically millennials coming from next generation family businesses. One of the things they talk about, what are their attitudes towards their family business? What are their interests to joining the family business? And the third one then, do they need any special incentives to work in and of their family business? This is a study done by John Davison, based at MIT and family firms right across the world. Just to give you some insights. 400 respondents, 53 countries. 3/4 of the members have lived and still live in where their family business is headquartered. So if we look at the split, roughly 50-50, it's a 60-40 split on the genders, 20 to 32, a good age span, and then a good span of generations. So if you see a first generation there, that means that their parents have the family business and they're the millennial generation the second. So let's see what the millennial generation are saying about family business. If you look on the left, it's an industrious group of people. They are working hard. 43% work for the family enterprise, 25% work outside. They expect to be an owner in the next 5 to 15 years, and 37%, remember, they're aged 20 to 32. Almost 40% of them are currently owners in the family business. What else do we know? More likely to work in the family business if they come from the second generation. Why? Because from this age, folks, they've been educated about business. The kitchen table has been the boardroom table. They've seen invoices. They've seen business. They've met stakeholders. Millennials who have ownership are more likely to join the family business. Millennials in hierarchical cultures in the organization are more likely to be entrepreneurs. Again, this is an industrious population of people. If we look at what we say is 41% at least 50 hours a week, 27% to do a 40-hour week. This, again, is interesting. They want to work for the family business. 43% want to work in the family business, 5% not. If you've ever studied organizational behavior, and one of the best psychologists around understanding motivation of people, you've, I suspect, done it in business schools right across the world, Maslow. And Maslow said in his pyramid, which you've seen, the base of the pyramid are the extrinsic needs. And Maslow wrote about in the 1930s and the 40s and the 50s, and we said we're driven by status, titles, money, opportunity. Okay, but now what you see about this millennial generation, look at what's motivating them. They want more interesting work. They want better work schedule and a better work environment. What's lower down are the extrinsic needs. If we did this to the baby boomers 30 years ago, it would have been totally reversed. Absolutely 100% reversed. These people want purpose, they want opportunity, and they want to be challenged. Now, if you are and you come from a family business, what do they want with regard to what increases their probability of joining the family business? They want to join a family business that is professionalized. And I absolutely despise this term, because that's to say a family business is not professionalized, not at all. They want security. Remember, they've grown up in a world where organizations, they've found insecurity. They've turned in on themselves. Individualism is high. So they want a structure in an organization. They want a family business as a family employment policy. They have a mentoring program. They have a leadership development program. They have a board. They want structure in their organization. Yes, they want ownership and they want leadership opportunities. Less likely, and you see this word meaningful work. That's not to say a family business opportunity is not meaningful work, not at all. But if they have a particular purpose in a career they want, whether it's veterinary medicine, whether it's medicine itself, that's what we mean by meaningful work. Ownership is a big topic for this generation. 84% say it's somewhat extremely important to be an owner, and 27% feel that inheriting an ownership stake should happen at or before the age of 30. If we look specifically, what age do you want to have your ownership at? Let's take a look. At what age do millennials believe they're capable of responsibly managing a significant distribution or gift? The one that always gets people is in their 20s. 45% of them want the ownership in their 20s. 44% in their 30s and 17% 40 plus. They're asked the question, and this question was asked to the generation before them, Generation X, and the generation before them, the baby boomers. The question you see here, if you were the leaders of their business, what would you prioritize? And people always have green agendas and all of this good stuff. Let's see what they prioritize. Remember, family business, millennial generation right across the world. Number one, satisfy the company's customers, clients, and suppliers. Establish a rewarding workplace for employees. Create wealth for the family owners. Perpetuate a multi-generational family enterprise that keeps the family together. Improve the welfare of the communities in which the company operates, and solve larger social problems. What's interesting, folks, it's exactly the same. They did this study 20 years ago, Generation X. They did it 40 years ago, baby boomers. Exact same priority. Different approach, to achieve the same agenda. Now, let's go back to Vanessa, the lady I met in Mexico City who hit me with all the different questions. And I said to Vanessa, you have to do one thing. Promise me you will do one thing. I want you to tell me about iterative testing. She said, iterative testing. Eric, what is iterative testing? If you come from a family business, it doesn't matter what region, what industry, or what size you are, you need to know about iterative testing. Remember the question her dad had, are we in good hands? This is the Danish goalkeeper, former Manchester United goalkeeper, Peter Schmeichel. This is his son, if you're interested in soccer, is now a very successful goalkeeper himself. When we talk about next generation leaders in a family business, people impart judgment onto them from a very, very young age. And this is where I'm going to start talking to you about iterative testing. So my question to you, if you're a next generation leader in a family firm, people have expectations about me, how do I start to understand their expectations? The question, how do stakeholders form opinions about their leaders? You heard of Ernest Shackleton? Amazing individual. One of the most studied individuals when we look at leadership. And I won't tell you too much about Shackleton, but 1914 to 1970, wanted to traverse the Antarctic, sea to sea. Incredible feat, never been done before. Got through the ice, ship stopped. He's looking at his crew looking at him. What next? They had to leave the ship and they camped on the solid ice for months. When it started to thaw, they got on lifeboats. They sailed for 700 nautical miles to Elephant Island. What's interesting, though, about Shackleton, if you read about Shackleton, and this is a word I give to every generation, next generation family business, Shackleton didn't have staff, he had followers. In a family business, these are your followers. How are you going to develop their trust? How are you going to develop their respect? And how do you influence your transition across the generations? These are the stakeholders, so many of them. I could give you 50 more, but these are, on a first example, some of the stakeholders, the followers you have in a multi-generation family business. I told Vanessa, please read about iterative testing, come back and we'll have another coffee. What is iterative testing, you might ask? I'll give you the definition, I'll explain it to you now. The unorganized manner in which stakeholders, which you've seen on the other slide, form opinions and narratives around a subject, in this case, Vanessa, the next generation. It's called testing because that's how stakeholders perceive what future leaders must go through to earn their trust and their loyalty. There are 4 tests that Vanessa or any next generation leader has to go through. They will put you through these 4 tests, every one of them. First one, qualifying test. And it's written here, I'll read it out to you. Qualifying tests are assessments based on the formal criteria that society in general and companies in particular use to judge executives. Okay, what exactly do I mean by that? They will ask, if they don't know too much about you, they know you're the next generation, they will form opinions, they will have expectations about you, they will ask these questions. The less they know, the more difficult the transition will be. I'll say that again. The less they know, the more difficult the succession transition will be. The next generation needs to know about the qualifying test. What is the qualifying test? What formal education have you undertaken? Do you have a degree in construction, veterinary medicine, law, vineyards? What work experience have you worked in? Zurich, Hong Kong, Singapore? Where have you worked across the world? Military service. Some countries of the world, this is fundamentally important. What community service have you undertaken, have you achieved? Excellence in demanding roles. Board experience, whether it's another family business, whether it's a not-for-profit. What board experience do you have? What international work experience? Have you taken yourself and your family and left Zurich and gone and lived abroad? What commitment have you shown to this organization? And what approval do you have from, not from your father, not from your mother, not from your aunt or your uncle, what approval do you have from impartial judges? These are the tests they will put you through. Let's talk a little bit about Paul, left-hand side of the screen. I've changed the names of the company, I've changed the country. This is a true story. Paul comes from a significantly large UK construction company. Studied construction studies in a top UK university, so theoretically passed the first stage of the test. Went to Dad, I'd like to join the family business. Father went to the chief engineer and said, what's our most difficult project? Here. He sent him to Saudi Arabia on an oil pipeline in Saudi. 2 years, the most extreme heat you can imagine. Incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. Paul did well, met followers, stakeholders in the family business, progressed on. 2 years later, came back to the dad, said, Dad, I've done my 2 years, have my qualification, I want to join the family business. Father said, no, send you to North Canada. Went to Alberta, 1 year. After that, he came back and said, Father, you're still not joining this family business. I want you to do a formal education. He did a master's degree, MIT, Sloan School. Then when he came back to the father said, I'm going to put you on a project in Europe, mainland Europe, developing something similar to this construction project. Paul met with trade unions, met with government officials, met with banks. He developed his reputation, his capability. And when the father was retiring from the family business, the board said, irrespective if he is the son of the previous generation, this gentleman should absolutely be offered this position. Paul has since taken the family business public, and it's a hugely successful European family business. These are some of the questions, folks. I'm not going to read them out to you. If you are advisor to a family business, an amazing checklist, amazing, amazing opportunity to have lots of coffee with them, and have they started to take or answer these questions? Let me just give you one or two of them. Is there a good fit between what I've studied and my leadership role? How have I worked outside the family business and shown that I can be a success? Just to give you two of them. Next one. Do you walk the walk and talk the talk? Is the next one. The self-imposed test. There's no point you being a next generation leader in a family business coming in, we're going to go to this market, this region, this opportunity. But you need to do what you talk about and then follow through on it. It's called the self-imposed test. Stakeholders or followers in a family business, they like the following. They like the balance between inspiring and delivering. They want predictability and trust. They want you to under-promise and over-deliver. And they want you to set realistic targets and timescales. I'm going to take you now to Latin America again. Gentleman on the right, next generation leader in a manufacturing company, 500 million euro turnover, big business. Took on the business, the economy's in decline. Still planned to open the company headquarters, and big vision, big aspirations for the future. 2 years into it, imploded. Major, major, major disaster. Sister took over. She scrapped the lavish headquarters, pay freeze on herself and other top managers, modest and achievable growth, built trust by consistently delivering, and business was doubled within 6 years of it. These are some of the questions for the self-imposed test. Are the expectations I'm setting, are they achievable? Have I taken personal responsibility for the gaps between what I promised and what I delivered? Third one, circumstantial test. The third test, Brexit, the COVID pandemic, has given us incredible opportunity for the circumstantial test. Have I negotiated a labour dispute? Have I stood up to the plate? Difficult time, difficult trade dispute, Brexit situation, business closed, need to create an online presence. Have I stood up to leadership after the passing of the founder? Have I followed the business or tackled a business crisis? Have I started a new venture? Have I moved my family abroad to work in and of the business? Turbulent times, I would encourage you to consider about moving to centre stage. Businesses, followers like heroic feats, but please be mindful to pick your battles wisely. These, again, are some aspects to consider when we talk about the circumstantial test. Am I willing to take on difficult challenges and crises to demonstrate my ability? The last one, am I willing to invest the extra effort necessary to succeed? The final one, political test. This is often a roller coaster ride for a next generation entering a family business. They enter the business and they realize that there are sharks in the tank that don't want you in the leadership position, potentially don't respect your authority in the leadership position. It's understanding not everybody is going to like you, nor do they want the best for you. You will have challenges from rivals. You will have malicious rumors in the organization. There, of course, will be dissenting views. They're going to test your ability, your capability to manage political tensions and confront those who break the norms and disregard direction. You will be tested politically in the organization. There are 4 traits of what a senior manager or an executive in a family business can follow. And this is helpful for Vanessa. One, they can protect you and coach you. You don't know everything. Your skill set is not complete. They can protect you and coach you. Vanessa knew them. I know who they are, Eric. Second one, they can blow the whistle. They can make the board, your father, whoever it is, make him know this lady is not up to it. She doesn't have the ability to run and lead the family business. They can hide and wait. They can sit in the long grass and wait for a potential implosion of the business and then stand up to the fore. Or fundamentally, they can exit the business. Again, here's some questions you might want to consider for political tests in a family business. Can I identify everyone who is threatened by my appointment and my leadership choices? And am I willing to place the company's interest above everything else? So, to conclude, I met Vanessa in Mexico City. She had lots of questions for me. And these are some of the advice I had for Vanessa and for her father from this hotel business. Encourage millennials' early development and experience outside the family business. Treat their entrepreneurial aspirations seriously, supportively, and you could probably benefit from their experience. Discuss their aspirations and career development and offer them opportunities to stretch, be challenged. They're driven by intrinsic motivators, not extrinsic motivators. You start with extrinsic motivators, you are almost destined to fail. Start thinking about intrinsic motivators. Give them lots of feedback. Be prepared for them and other millennials to have more flexible work schedules or work practices. Give them small leadership roles early and move them up in bigger roles. Set standards and timelines for them to acquire ownership. And for me, the most important one is make them aware of the 4 iterative tests. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Eric. We have time for a number of questions before we head out for a quick break.
One of the things that you mentioned, by the way, thank you very much, a great presentation. When you were talking about these millennials, you said often, they want. And this is, I think, one of the weak things about the millennials. They want. Of course, everybody wants something. But compared to other millennials, because we are talking about these millennials of European millenniums often, a little bit probably spoiled by their fathers, and fathers and mothers, of course, by their families, that they have given to them what they didn't have when they were young themselves, and they've given to them. And they have a little bit given them an unbalanced future, because they want what they want. Wait a second. So I believe that they have to understand that other millennials around the world, that they are coming with great desire of succeeding, and they are finding an opportunity in this part of the world, because there are a lot of spoiled millennials, and they are finding positions. And so I believe that these guys, we have to tell them that they don't have to ask too much. They have to make their way through, because if not, people think of the young people that were coming from Poland, that they were coming from other places of Russia and North Africa, South America, China. Next to Florence, there's this town called Prato, where we have a lot of Chinese people. Now they are the second generation, and they are beating the shit out of us. They are getting everywhere, and they are Italians. They look not, but they are Italians. So to these millennials, we have to tell them that out there is some competition, and what they want is irrelevant. Actually, better to give them a rucksack, I believe, and to have them make their way without too many, not really not ensuring what is going to be their future. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, exact same question came from the father, Vanessa's father. How do we stop this sense of entitlement, almost spoiled childlike behavior? I gave him the piece we'd written about the qualifying test and the impartial judge or judgment about working outside the family business. Some people say make mistakes with somebody else's money, but it's thinking about where can I develop objective measures of my performance. So my first piece of advice in that regard is to look at the 4 tests, but look at the first one, the qualifying test. Getting experience, getting objective measures of your performance outside the organization. That makes the transition process a whole lot easier entering into the family business.
Yeah, just a question. You spoke a lot about sort of transferring family businesses when it comes to family wealth, actually. I'm just curious, there's more and more people that actually give their money away to charity, not to their kids.
Right.
And I'm just curious to hear how you explain that, actually.
Legacy. Legacy is one of the big topics in a family business. Pride, reputation. What you find is a lot of the money is being channeled back into particular communities, in their community. Maybe it's a church, and for example, we've seen lots of that in Italy, France in particular. So community, legacy, tradition in a family firm. And in the classroom, when I teach next generation people, we write textbooks. We take a textbook from any business school across the world. It's an amazing textbook. It makes sense from a capital markets, financial investment. Of course it does. But in a family business investment decision, you've got this paradox. You've got the tradition, and you've got the change. And what a lot of the families are doing is the investment portfolio with regard to community is about preserving, maintaining a legacy in the family business. But that's something, for example, when I showed you the flower at the start, that's something the likes of Vanessa needs to be aware of. That's one of the strands. How are you going to do it, and what benefit does it bring to and of the family business? But tradition and legacy is a big part of being a multi-generational family firm.
You have time for 1 or 2 more? Yes, please.
Eric, thank you very much for this very, very exciting presentation. Everything I heard seems to be also valid for non-family business. And if you want to grow, the people within our organization, whatever it is, it's exactly the same approach and the same criteria. Is this true, or this is just a wrong perception of myself?
Yeah, good question. The altruism in a family business, and dare say nepotism in a family business, makes it all the more difficult. This sense of Vanessa's first question to me, Eric, do people believe I got the job just because I have the family association with the name over a hotel chain? That's a very difficult position for Vanessa to be in. So when we talk about succession, we talk about emotions, feelings, confidence of a next generation leader. The iterative testing is very different for a next generation leader. Absolutely.
I have a follow-up question. It was a very interesting story about the son who rather messed up and then the daughter came and fixed up. But in a family, the son doesn't go away. What happened to the son in your story?
He didn't become the prodigal son, if that's your question. He didn't return. He's still on the board of the family business. One of the things in that story in particular, they had a very successful business governance, but very lacking in their family governance. One of the challenges for the development and growth of the family business, for that female in particular, was to instill and put in family governance. Family constitution, family employment policy, shareholders agreements into the family business. Big business absent to it. The son, or the next generation, her brother, is still on the board, ownership of the family business. It was a difficult time, as you can imagine, with that period in it, but he still has an ownership stake in the family business.
All right, let's wrap up here. Thank you very much, Eric. It was exciting indeed, the way you presented it, also the content. My big takeaway is when you are facing a lot of questions, and frankly, the first laundry list you shared looked scary to me, but you don't have to have all the answers, right? Your job is to coach through those questions, and the tool you shared seems quite comprehensive and a good way to help them find their own answers, which is then presumably the right one. Thank you again. Yeah. As promised, here is the bottle of the Frescobaldi wine.
Thank you very much.
Please find a moment to join.
Thank you. Enjoy that. Thank you. Thank you.